Welcome back. Now, Wake Up Nigeria has a special wellness segment that happens every Wednesday, and it's about to begin right now. We're here to discuss tough love, raising the boy child in African communities. And of course, it is Men's Mental Health Awareness Month, and Father's Day just passed the last weekend. So it is a very key topic to discuss. And who better to discuss it than the CEO and team lead of Thrive Network, a registered mental health NGO, Obi Nadi. Now her journey into the field of mental health advocacy began in 2018 after her personal battle with PPD, that's postpartum depression. It sparked her mission to raise awareness and support others facing similar struggles. And it's always a pleasure having you in the studio with us. Welcome back.
Thank you so much, Titi. Thank you. And I'm going to start by asking you my favorite question. How is your mental health?
How's my mental health?
Yes.
My mental health is solid.
Oh,
and that is after a lot of work has been done.
Exactly.
Sometimes I see the signs and I've figured out what my triggers are, and I try to avoid them. But that's after a lot of work.
I love the part about putting in a lot of work, because people just say, oh, my mental health is fine, my mental health is solid, exactly.
But it took a while to get there.
Exactly. Yeah. That's the point. It took a whole lot of work to get there. Fantastic.
A lot of people don't think about things like mental health on a daily basis.
Exactly.
But that is what sort of drives everyday life this point.
It is the powerhouse of our overall well-being. So it should be prioritized at all times. But I mean, most of us are trying to survive. So when you say mental health, they're like, I beg, that's the list of my problems. Meanwhile, that is that should be your major problem, your major focus, and constantly working towards maintaining good mental health.
So let's talk about the boy child now.
Yeah.
There is something about the boy child and the conversation around the boy child that has almost often started with how they were raised by their fathers and what examples were set by their fathers. If, for instance, a boy comes from a home where the father was maybe violent to the mother, the boy sees that as an example. If a boy comes from a family where the father was never vulnerable in front of their son, it affects them growing up as well. Now, where do you stand on fathers being vulnerable in front of their sons? And is it a negative or a positive?
Thank you so much, Titi. But before we dive into this conversation, as always, I'm going to say happy Men's Health Month to every man listening to us right now or watching us right now on television. The month of June is dedicated to men globally, and the whole idea is to promote mental, emotional, and physical well-being for men. And we're trying to encourage our men to take better care. I don't want to say more care, but take better care of their overall well-being. And the focus this year is on closing the empathy gap for men. And that's and that's us, providing most all-round support in the areas where our men need it. Yes. So back to the topic for today. That's tough love.
So vulnerability between the fathers and sons. Yes.
Exactly. So this conversation is one that is often downplayed, but it is actually so important because, like you rightly said, the father figure in the family tends to model what our boys replicate in adulthood, right? So already we exist in a society that promotes harmful, let me not say negative, but let me say harmful stereotypes, and surrounding the masculinity of the boy child. And so you have a dad who has never hugged his son, and remember, research has proven that the first 18 years of a child's life tends to shape their personality and tends to shape how they resolve conflicts, how they relate with others on the socialization ladder as they navigate their way through life. So yes, where I actually stand on dads being vulnerable in front of their kids, and the word vulnerable is actually relative, because the first thing I want to ask is, do men feel challenging and positive emotions like everybody else? if the answer is yes, then how do we create that balance? Because there's also the other school of thought, like we were discussing just before we came on air, that says, oh, look, you're trying to emasculate the boy child, you're trying to make them effeminate and all of that.
Or make them soft.
Exactly, or make them soft. But what has happened over time is that we have men who are emotionally repressed, men who tend to be aggressive while communicating because they grew up, you know, that's what their dads modeled. Right?
Some would say they prefer to see an aggressive boy as opposed to a soft or more mellow boy.
Absolutely, or a
so
boy.
Whenever I've even been in situations where you see a boy climbing a shelf and jumping down, and then the father is like, "That's right, that's my son.
Boys will be
he
boys.
can jump, you know. Boys will be boys. If he broke his leg, boys will be boys, really. But hey, to each their own. In terms of vulnerability, we're not saying make them soft. We're just saying have them express themselves.
Absolutely, absolutely. Have safer spaces where the boy child, absolutely. Because look, emotions is not a thing for most African parents. Let me not generalize, but when raising the boy child, most especially, emotions are not taken into consideration. So most times, more often than not, these boys struggle with communicating, struggle with expressing challenging emotions like feelings of frustrations, you know, anger, irritability, and all of that. And this is all a function of how they were raised, which is why the focus is on the boy child today. And what then happens is that the boy child in society often faces challenges like limited safe spaces, emotional unavailability. You have more boys who tend to be stoic in nature because, I mean, like you said, you're a boy, you're not expected to be excited, you're not expected to complain. It doesn't matter how bad it gets, you're not a woman, and so you must just man up and then just deal with all these emotions on the inside. But again, remember, since the onset of the pandemic, research has also stated that there's a surge in the number of men globally who intentionally end their lives. And I'm sure this is not what we want. And this is a function of, you know, the core of this conversation, manning up, not speaking up, you know, repressing and suppressing challenging emotions. Exactly.
So I want to touch on what emotions we're talking about.
Yes.
So there's a wide range of emotions. If you put them all in a circle in like a pie chart, you have anger, you have sadness, you have confusion, you have
irritability,
you
have frustration,
you also have joy, you have love,
you have excitement,
and it's those three, the joy, love, excitement, you know, areas that seem to be sort of held back from the boys.
Absolutely.
And expressing themselves has become challenging. But now as families, what can they do to sort of maybe create a safe space, even if it hasn't been there before? I know it might be too late to change some things, but you know, they say it's never too late to make a change. But what can a family do right now that's watching right now to maybe sort of connect emotionally with their boy child?
First off, as a mental health campaigner, the first thing I would say is we need to integrate mental health in schools. We need to do more. We need to promote more mental health educational awareness programs. We need to start from the top of the ladder when it comes to the social agents of socialization in society, which is family, because that's the first port of call, right? That's where the boy child receives most of his training in early family life and all of that. So mental health awareness. Because look, if we say, okay, boys will be boys and they need to man up, we forget the aspect of mental health. We forget what is mental health. Mental health is a state of well-being that determines how we think, feel, and act. So if these boys, and like I said, there's more growing concern now for the mental health of the boy child because of how they are raised. So number one, more awareness on mental health, fighting the stigma surrounding the boy child and men's mental health. We need to fight that stigma. We need to challenge stereotypes and norms surrounding the traditional, portrayal of masculinity.
So if there's a conversation going on now, and you have a father and a son, and father decides to sit his son down, most of the time the son will probably think they're in trouble.
Exactly. Exactly, because dad hardly ever sits him down to have a positive conversation. Exactly.
So this is a conversation where maybe two men just, a boy and the father sit down to discuss emotions. Now, if a father has never done this before, if a father doesn't even know where to begin,
exactly.
This is where I ask you, where can they start from? What sort of conversations are maybe just mellow enough to
light
start the process of connecting with the boy child?
This is a fantastic question, because I know if we have 100 dads watching us right now, I can promise you 90 dads have never even thought of having this important conversation. But dads, the first thing I'm going to say is the importance of modeling. Modeling. You know, we must learn to practice what we preach, right? And so if a dad is going to have this conversation, I think the first thing to do is say to your boy, look, you are human. This is what I say all the time. We are all human. And for those who are Christians, I say to them, look, if you say men are not allowed to express emotions, even Jesus wept, right? And all of that. And that is seen as a challenging emotion. So number one, you're human. It is perfectly okay to feel, because you know you have a broad range of emotions. So definitely, son, it's definitely okay to feel challenging emotions. It's okay to feel positive emotions. The most important thing here is the ability to contain challenging emotions and all of that. You're human. That's it. On a very light note.
So we would like this conversation to continue online. What are those questions you would love your father or a male mentor to have with you? What are those conversations you would like to have with them? What are the questions you would love them to answer, and answer honestly with you? Maybe you could use our hashtag #WakeUpNigeria on TVC and let us know. We'll try and connect with you and continue the conversation. Thank you so much, Obinadi, for coming back to talk to us. So it is Men's Mental Health Awareness Month. We will continue bringing experts in to have these conversations, and we'll be connecting with you after this break on Wake Up Nigeria.